Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish audio drama review. In today's review, we're taking a trip around the universe with the one and only Eric Roberts Master from the 1996 TV movie, in his Big Finish spin-off series, Master! This release is particularly titled Planet Doom, and is available to order now on the Big Finish website on both physical CD and digital download. It can also be purchased as part of a bundle alongside the previous volumes within this series so far. Very much like the return of this particular incarnation of the Master, Planet Doom also sees the return of one and only Chase Masterson as Vienna Salvatore, and to be honest, it is one of the rather unusual things with this spin-off series so far, as despite it being called Master, it is basically a joint spin-off between this version of the Master and Vienna, as she has appeared within all of the volumes of this series so far. So I have in fact been away from doing reviews for quite a number of weeks now, in fact a number of months. My entire life has focused around writing a thesis. I'm finally free from writing said thesis, and it's about time too, so it means that I've got a lot of Big Finish to catch up on from early 2024, and in fact late 2023 as well. So there are lots of reviews on the way. So very much like the previous volumes within this series, we have one big story within this box set that is split into three singular episodes, the first of which is Basilisk, as written by Robert Whitelock. The second episode is Axos Rising, as written by Barnaby Kay, and the concluding story is Hellbound, as written by Robert Valentine. There are quite a lot of familiar names with this release as well in the production credits. Shout out to them all, it is a brilliant production this one, it's very polished, I love the music score by Howard Carter, and also a shout out to Simon Holub, who has done a wonderful job on the cover art this time round. Incredibly vibrant, especially with that Axon Doctor there on the front. So this Master spin-off has quite tough boots to fill, in all honesty. As an avid fan of the War Master series with the wonderful Derek Jacobi, I think it can be easy for me to personally not like this series as much. Currently, in my personal opinion, it's certainly not to the same level as the War Master, which pretty much established itself from episode 1 onwards, but that isn't to say that this series isn't good. It's a really fun box set, it has lots to offer, and I think that this series is gradually over time finding its feet, and I think that identity is most certainly there. It's just taken a lot longer to get there, which is fine. You know, he's a very unusual version of the Master, this one, and I think that he takes more time to kind of work within the audio form. Of course, every incarnation of the Doctor brings different approaches to adventures, and I think that is also the case for these different antagonists that we have with the Master, particularly a person like the Master at the helm. Everything's unpredictable anyway, which is one of the beauties of having an antagonist leading a story, but in particular with this incarnation of the Master, I think there is still quite a lot for us as Doctor Who fans to kind of learn about this incarnation, due to him only having one TV appearance. The whole style of this series is undoubtedly very different to other Doctor Who stories. Once more, it utilises that big one-story format split across the 3 episodes, as I have already mentioned, and it does in fact feel like a big American sci-fi blockbuster movie. And I suppose with the return of Vienna, the assassin, within this box set as well, I suppose you could say that Planet Doom marks the 3rd film within this rather epic trilogy. All of the box sets so far have also had something different to offer. We've had like a futuristic sort of Earth, we've also had a spaceship, now we've got kind of like a mission to a random alien prison world. So Basilisk begins the adventure and Vienna is kidnapped by the Cerberus warship, and they have a mission for her. Essentially, due to her personal ties to the Master, they decide to use her as a lure in order to get him from the depths of the time vortex, but both of them must work as prisoners as a part of Project Basilisk, and they are under duress throughout the entirety of this box set, joined quite literally by handcuffs. Although they're not kind of chain handcuffs, they can kind of move. If they go beyond a certain distance, they will face deadly consequences, which means both of them need to at least try and get along within this set, which goes as well as you can imagine, especially as we start to venture to the mysterious planet below. I will say this now because the cover art gives it away. Of course, the mysterious force that we are introduced to within the early half of this story is of course Axos from the 3rd Doctor serial, The Claws of Axos, and I think that's quite a nice callback, of course, to the early 70s Master stories. I love how the warship kind of uses or has the whole mission based on unit files that they have obtained, and of course that then links the Master to this box set as well and why they want him involved. So episode 1 basically sees the setup setup of the mission and its various participants. Given that this is only episode 1, it's definitely a more dialogue-heavy story, establishing sort of the story's location, the characters, and it's definitely focusing a lot on world building rather than heightened drama and threat. So once again, with this series, I definitely recommend listening to it over a short period of time, maybe 1 to 3 days, an episode a day, rather than listening to one story, leaving it a week, and then coming back to it, because you'll probably forget sort of small bits of the plot because every single episode connects together. I am quite impressed with Eric Roberts' portrayal as the Master within this opening part. He's a very slippery, smug version of the Master, but he also plays it cool all the time. He kind of reminds me of that type of person that you see at social events who constantly mutters and digs deep into things and conspiracies and you don't quite know what the hell they're going on about. He's kind of constantly disconnected from the real world, just saying unusual things in a dazed state of weirdness. I think that compared to other versions of the Master, this can definitely take a lot of getting used to, especially within the audio format. I know that every time I re-engage with this incarnation, it does take me a while to kind of get used to the way that he approaches things and says things, because he always seems so calm and collected and slippery throughout. But I think that with that comes a very enticing, unusual performance. He loves a good bit of hypnosis and power play as well. He's a very unusual person. He's weirdly seductive. He's like a seductive, snaky man, rather than a murderous, gentlemanly, wise figure and wine connoisseur that we see with the War Master. And naturally, of course, that brings very different ways to approaching the story. Accompanying the Master and Vienna on their mission, we also have the Raptors, who are perfectly staged within this story to get manipulated, essentially, by our lead antagonists, which is always nice, isn't it? I will admit, when I first heard the announcement for this box set, I seen that Vienna was coming back again. I did think, oh, okay. I do definitely think that it is time that we see the Eric Roberts Master do stuff alone, as so far this series may as well be titled Vienna and the Master Go Around the Universe Causing Chaos, which I think that it does definitely take some attention away from this Master, but a lot of the good attention does come from Vienna. I think that within this box set, she's definitely one of the selling points. I'd be lying if I didn't say I got halfway through episode 1 and instantly I was back into this dynamic again, loving Vienna's presence. So really, if she did leave this series, there are big boots to fill within this one. I think that she's definitely carved a hole within this series that she very much owns. But with that comes perhaps risk of taking the attention away from the Master. They are undeniably a very good match, and it definitely brings this series to life. Axos Rising is the second episode of the set, as written by Barnaby Kay, who also stars in this story as Axos. Oh, how very multi-talented. Once again, I think that this story actually very well demonstrates the style of the series overall. The music by Howard Carter has a vibe which is very unique and unlike any other Doctor Who spin-off. It's very hypnotic, very otherworldly, which again, it kind of plays on the Master's love for hypnotising and manipulating people, which I think is very cool. As the Master, Vienna and the Raptor crew arrive on the planet, which does of course imprison Axos, naturally the Master wants to lead the mission, but also he has a few tricks up his sleeve as well, as always. And the second two parts of this box set definitely take on a more mission-based plot. They have an end goal to kind of obtain this energy, of course, and then the Master wants to do other things as well, so there's lots of obstacles in their way, lots of things to compete with. I think it's a very visual story, which if you like imagining episodes within your mind, I think that this one's a very good one to do that with. The beginning of the mission is also very chaotic. I love how the Master conveys his authority and being essentially connected to the Master throughout via deadly handcuffs. Vienna is along for the ride, whether she likes it or not. The dynamic between the two is great, very deadly, full of hate, but also brilliant to listen to. I wouldn't exactly say it's a love-hate relationship, it's just a hate relationship, but also there's a mutual respect there, because both of them are very dangerous characters. I think that they are both very interesting and offer something different to the plot. I think Barnaby's written dialogue in particular gives this story a lot of energy. He captures the personalities of these antagonists perfectly. It's also a step up in the action compared to episode 1, which is really effective, and it develops upon Robert Whitelock's expertly crafted world building within the first story, so instantly it's giving the box set that sense of progression, building upon what we've already heard, which then forms a really nice neat package as you reach the end of the set. Terry Ann Bob Baxter also returns to the series as Passion. She previously appeared within Series 2, and I think that that's a nice connection. She's not on the cover art, and I think I risk overlooking her within this review, but she is a great character, and I love the sort of solo mission that she goes on in this story. Of course, she finds out that Vienna has been kidnapped at the very beginning of episode 2, so she goes on this mission to find her, to learn what's going on, and she visits this rather rugged-feeling alien world on the search for answers. And again, it continues to explore a rather unique style to this series. It feels a little bit more blockbusterish, a little bit more bold, and also I think you could very easily make this series more adult, more Torchwood-ish, but given the direct presence of a Doctor Who villain like the Master, that probably isn't allowed. But even just the little things like meeting a clandestine gang kind of figure in a booming club with like police sirens in the background, it all feels a little bit more risky and daring than Doctor Who. I quite like that. It's a different style. It's also worth noting that all of the episodes within this set come under the 1 hour mark, ranging between 47 to 55 minutes. And the reason why I mention this is because all of the stories feel very well structured and paced. The interconnect between each episode is seamless, contributing to the overall puzzle that this box set presents. Each scene also runs very smoothly, as the listener is kind of kept on their toes. There's not really any scenes within this box set, I think, that could be considered filler. I think it's very fast-paced, it keeps your attention throughout, which is in fact very impressive for what is essentially a 3-hour story. But also due to the fact that all 3 episodes are written by different writers, I think that all of the characters also feel very consistent throughout as well. The script editing within this one, again, runs satisfyingly well. And that's another thing with this series. Of course, I do believe it first started in 2021, and it was first introduced with only having 3 episodes, and I think that this series has definitely styled itself around that format. Meanwhile, you have other series, perhaps like the 8th Doctor Adventures, which I personally think, and the 5th Doctor ones actually, come to think of it, I think that they sometimes struggle from having box sets that are only 3 episodes long, and you do kind of get to the end and expect still a 4th story in there, and it's as if you get to the end of the box set a little bit too quickly and you feel the absence of that extra 4th hour of audio drama. But so far with this series, I think it has used the 3 episode structure really effectively, and on that note, I really hope that when the War Master series is inevitably extended, I really hope it remains 4 episodes long, because I think it is one of the very significant components that make that series as strong as it is, and I'm aware that it's one of the only series still at Big Finish that still has 4 episodes per box set, and I hope it stays. So Hellbound concludes this set as written by Robert Valentine, and it is a very well written end to Planet Doom, having some standout moments from all of the main characters, particularly Vienna Salvatore. I think that she does a brilliant job in this one. I think that Chase Masterson absolutely steals the show, and considering that prior to this spin-off I had absolutely no idea who Vienna actually was, I've really gradually came to love the character over the course of this series, and I think that she is definitely one of the highlights. And as much as I started this review saying that it will be great for Vienna and the Master to part ways, once more I've ended this set simply wanting more Vienna content. In fact, I'd go as far to say, if Big Finish announced a Vienna reboot, with maybe Passion involved in there as well, I would definitely be more inclined to give the series a go, now that I know more about Vienna, rather than going through the back catalogue of the older stories that have been previously released. See you now. Bringing Vienna into this series definitely worked for me from a commercial point of view, so yeah, you've hooked me on that one. Meanwhile, the Snaky Master definitely needs some alone time. I definitely think that he needs his own proper box set, being by himself, simply just to run the show a little bit more, because I think he is at risk of being overshadowed. Naturally, being the final episode of the box set, this episode has the job of tying all of the threads together, and it does that very well. The characters are united. Axos wants to escape from its prison, Vienna wants to escape from the cuff which binds herself to the Master, and we also have Paul McGann thrown in there for good measure as well as the Axon Doctor. I think it's only fair for me to say as a listener that Paul McGann does indeed appear within this story, however it is a very minimal role, so if you are a Big Finish listener who only listens to stories with the 8th Doctor in, I know there are ones out there because Paul McGann is brilliant, I wouldn't really recommend this one sort of being a high priority because he is barely in this set. It's only really the final third of the story. so don't get your hopes up to have a full-on Master 8th Doctor confrontation episode. But whilst Paul McGann does play a great role, it is a minimal one. I think that hearing him within this series is very exciting, especially interacting with characters like Vienna. I thought that was quite fun. Much like episode 2, I think the plot builds very effectively and the resolution works well. There is some technobabble, but I don't think it daunts. It's very well rounded as a conclusion, and it showcases how slippery this version of the Master is. He's clinging on to life. And again, I think that Eric Roberts puts in a great, unique performance, unlike any other version of the Master. It's not too over the top, not too evil. He's a very subtle Master. He kind of tinkers in the background. I think that you definitely get the impression that this is a version of the Master who is clinging on to life, arguably even a little bit more so than the Beavers and Pratt incarnations, which I think is very odd. To me, at least, my interpretation is this Master uses his previous incarnations' exploits to kind of prove how evil he is. So in the future, I want to see this Master being more hands-on. I want to see him being more evil, because so far I see lots and lots of manipulation, but I just want him to cold-bloodedly kill people, to be honest. This one's a little bit calmer and more devious, which, you know, maybe some people's cup of tea. I just think that the War Master can be very, very calculating, and particularly for the audio form, that's what makes him very enticing to listen to. That said as well, I think that this story does offer lots of brilliant developments for Vienna and Passion, some really lovely scenes, emotionally written by Robert Valentine. I think, again, he's done a very good job to ensure that the characters all have a moment to shine. So overall, I think that Planet Doom is a really promising sort of reflection of what this series has to offer. I think that we are very quickly getting there with the Master series. Master, exclamation mark. I wish it had a different name, I must admit. Because it's very difficult to say, oh, what Master series? You know, you've got the War Master, then you've got Master exclamation mark, you know, and then Call Me Master coming whenever, who knows. I just think that this series needs a slight revision, sadly maybe the absence of Vienna, just to give this version of the Master a little bit more time to shine. Maybe some singular 1-hour stories as opposed to one big 3-hour episode, just to see this Master doing what he does best. We need an only the good, but this version of the Master's take kind of on that, doing his own thing, causing chaos. But I think that as box sets go, this one is a very neat package. It's a story that you can certainly immerse yourself in. I think it's got a bold identity, lots of great characters. It has a very strong lead duo, which I personally thought was very enjoyable, although I do admit I don't think this version of the Master will be for everyone. I think he is a very acquired taste, and that may be a challenging listen for some. But to be honest, out of all of the series so far, this one, I think it's difficult because they get released sort of yearly, so it's difficult to recall my complete memories of the previous box sets, but I think that this one could potentially be the best of the series so far. There's definite progression. So thank you very much for watching this review. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for regular Doctor Who content and Big Finish audio drama reviews. On that note, have a nice day. I shall see you all next time.